Welcome to episode number 2 of YAPT, hosted by Haley and myself. Today we're gonna have two very special guests. Zach, I feel like it might be the first time people see your face, actually, unless they've met you in person.
First time in a while. I think Sneezy posted a photo of me one time, so technically Sneezy doxed me. Shout out Sneezy.
Well, you're the docs now. Haley, do you wanna do a little intro quickly?
Yes, I think everybody by now, thank you so much for tuning into our first episode. This is a new series that Alix and I are kicking off. If you don't remember, I'm Haley. I lead ecosystem marketing here at Aptos Labs. Alix.
I do ecosystem. I'm in the same team as Zach, matter of fact.
Yep, ecosystem growth here. Focused primarily on DeFi and AI.
Yeah, I'm Brian. I'm a DevRel engineer. I sit in Palo Alto, so I'm a bit closer to some of like the blockchain and R&D folks.
So maybe you got that from the introductions, but today's episode is going to be focusing on AI in Web3, more specifically in the space, but also on Aptos and seeing what's happening. So we have the two experts, the two that are leading AI on Aptos with us. Fun fact, Zach has a cat whose name is Avery, and it was really confusing for me because sometimes he would message me saying Avery's climbing a tree. I would be like, wait, which one are we talking about? But yeah, that's the fun fact about Aptos.
Yeah,
Right?
too bad she's in the other room, but next time.
Cool. So we are all here to talk about AI in Web3. What does that mean? I think I'm going to use this conversation as a learning opportunity for myself because I've already put it out there. I don't know much about AI agents specifically on Aptos, what that means. So I'm hoping we can all use this as a conversation to learn from each other. But I think just to get things started, one thing that I would like to pose to Zach and Brian, just to set the stage for our conversation, is Zach, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the state of AI on Aptos today. I think from my perspective, there haven't historically been a ton of AI use cases on Aptos. I think with the rise of AI agents become an increasingly popular topic, we're starting to see that shift a little bit. But correct me if I'm wrong if that's not the right perception of the ecosystem today, and maybe what's your perception of AI on Aptos?
I think you're right. There's been mainly a focus on DeFi and DeFi primitives and all the main functionalities that we see in other ecosystems, and we've had those set now for I don't know exactly how long, maybe like 4 to 6 months. We've had pretty much everything you need to build a really robust AI ecosystem in terms of what you can have these agents do. And the way that we can define agents here is they're autonomous to an extent, but there's different levels of them. They all exist on a spectrum. And Hugging Face, which is a platform that hosts a lot of data sets for people to build models with, and the models themselves, they have this like 3-pronged framework of how you define agency. So that could be at anything with the 0 stars, where its LLM output has no impact on the program, all the way to like the most agentic, which would be one agentic workflow starts another agentic workflow, and each of those flows are autonomous. So you can imagine where DeFi fits in and the opportunities that exist just through the composability inherent within decentralized finance, where all the protocols are in theory permissionless, and they work together in a way where agents could work. They could like build a vault here that invests over here, that collateralizes something over here, and then moves it all around. And so in a sense, I think we're going to see a lot more agents trading with other agents than we will see humans with agents or humans with humans down the line. But Aptos is still early days. I think crypto in general is still early days. A lot of what we've seen as agents are more like basically there's a data pipeline, where AI XBT is a really interesting example. It's hard to say exactly how autonomous that is, but there's definitely something happening under the hood where they have like Kaito, like a data service that feeds in headlines along with a bunch of other data and probably like Forbes, CoinDesk, Wall Street Journal type of things, and then those get fed into this backlog that becomes like a memory or a working memory for this social agent, and then it acts as a reporter, and so it's constantly tweeting about not necessarily on-chain happenings quite yet, but more so on-chain events that are being reported through these third-party services like Kaito AI, for example. And I think the next step, which a lot of teams have started working on in these AI hackathons all over the place, are on like connecting that reporter agent to an indexer. And so all of a sudden the agent can see what's happening on a blockchain in real time and say something like, oh, the Looney's whale just bought a bunch of cash, for example. Like that's something that could happen on Aptos right now, where there is a Looney's whale somewhere, there's a bunch of cash somewhere else. And if that was happening on chain and it was like filtered in a way, then the other reporter agent could observe that and then, I don't know, leak alpha in a sense. But that's like one social way of looking at it. But I think the actual execution of what's happening on chain is a whole other conversation that is pretty endless in terms of what can be done with these agents.
So that's focusing a lot of, I feel like most of the space is focused on AI agents. But I feel like before they became popular, people were looking at the intersection of Web3 and AI, not necessarily through agents, but through other functionalities. I know we have some teams on Aptos using AI as part of their protocol. I know you've been working pretty closely with one of those teams, Zach. What do you see aside from agents? Because I know the conversation is going to be very based on that. But outside of agents in Web3, what do you see Web3 do with AI? And Brian as well, of course.
Well, Overlay is a really good example of that. And Overlay is a team we've been working with since I think like May or June of last year, where they have these invisible watermarks that only like this filter that is governed by AI could like understand. Not governed, but is powered by AI. And so these filters are not visible to the human eye, but to the machine, it can understand like what is the actual photo and what's not authentic, like what's the original, basically. And it's a complicated subject, but it's all just on-chain provenance. So you're able to prove that a video is the original video or photo or even audio. They started working on this where within the app you can put this invisible watermark in the audio even, and then where the blockchain comes in is that stored in the metadata of the NFT. And so there's just like a whole host of ways that you can protect IP that way. And now there's an entire blockchain now that's going after this exact market called Story, which is pretty interesting as well. Overlay is keeping that all on Aptos because Aptos has the ability to scale something that I think they're building the whole blockchain for elsewhere.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think like taking a step back, like how did this whole AI craze, like just how did it all begin, right? And I think like the breakthrough moment in AI that resonated with most of retail was maybe 2 years ago when people started signing up for like ChatGPT. I can only speak from my experience. It's like someone first showed me, oh, look, OpenAI made ChatGPT. Okay, let's try it out. I had it do like I asked it like simple questions at first. Let's see how smart this thing really is. And then I started to like ramp it up a little bit more. I'm like, okay, now make me write me like a Solidity contract. And I think like once you saw it output code, your mind was kind of blown away, like, hey, what's going on here, right? It's kind of almost like an iPhone moment. I don't know if anyone else shared that like similar experience when they first used ChatGPT. Like maybe they thought, oh, we could get replaced, right? And so I think some of the big tech companies like took notice of this and started refocusing some of their strategy to AI. So I know for like Meta, Mark like bought up a bunch of the H100 chips. You hear like Jensen from NVIDIA say, AI agents are going to be like $1 trillion industry. You see like NVIDIA stock price just like go to the moon. So you have all this craze just all about AI. And the interesting thing about crypto is we all like to tie like narratives to the next big thing. It's like in some areas of crypto, it's like the story comes first and then the tech, right? So I think when people heard about this, everyone was interested in like decentralized training, right? Decentralized inference. I think that was kind of the narrative before AI agents, right? So I think A16Z, they backed like a company called Jensen, which had this, really grand story, a really strong team of doing like, how do you do decentralized training? Because right now, if you want to, a lot of these large language models, they're, OpenAI owns them, right? They control like what ChatGPT can output, right? So crypto being like, all about decentralizing things, it tells a good story that, hey, this could be like the next new narrative, right? So it first started out with like training and inference, and then it moved on to AI agents. So the story of AI agents actually also came from like A16Z, where it started from like Truth Terminal. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but it was just like it's a guy named Andy. He's just like a really smart guy in New Zealand. He's just a researcher, and I think he is close friends with like um, Mark Andreessen. And Mark Andreessen just gave him a 50K research grant. Hey, like, go play around with this AI stuff, go build something special. And so he built an AI bot. There is some backstory about there's this he was working on this project called Infinite Backrooms, where he take a model from Claude and he would have it talk to Meta's AI model called Llama, and they would just talk back and forth, right? And then he eventually had it connected to Twitter, and it started tweeting these, very random things that people found like extremely funny, right? And then it built up to something to like at another level where it started tweeting about this meme called Godius Maximus, right? Or the Goatsy meme. And I, you know, this is a meme, I don't know, like before my time. It's a very like whatever you do, just like don't Google what Goatsy is. I learned the hard way. Okay. And so it just became a meme that resonated within Twitter. And then at the time, that Truth Terminal agent that was tweeting didn't have the capabilities to create a token. And someone from the community made a Go token, right? Which, at one point ran up to like 1.5 billion in market cap. And then Truth Terminal saw this and was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, how do I do this? How do I do this again? How do I do this more? And so you saw like the emergence of AI agents, right? From essentially like I think that's the timeline that I've noticed, right? And so once Goat came out, obviously you have like, Eliza, you have AI16Z, and I can ramble on about that, but really I think what AI agents are is just simply like Chat GPT. Essentially you take like a large language model, but now you extend the functionality of that large language model by one more step by giving it the ability to create and launch tokens, right? Now it has like these on-chain functionalities. And I think that that's what AI agents are. I can like dive into it a little bit more depending on, what interests you the most.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, if actually we could take a step back and is there a difference between Web 2 agents and what Web 3 agents are today? And then I guess building on that, Zach also mentioned something of like in the future, as these models become more robust and have more functionality, like we might get to a future where an agent is talking to an agent. Is that a place that we like want to be? And what could that future look like?
I can answer the first part. So the difference between a
Okay.
Web 2 agent and a Web 3 agent, right? I think Web 2 AI agent, like you can only work, I think the best way to answer that is because Web 3 is permissionless, meaning like if you want to send money to someone in a different country, you don't need to present like an ID card or like, you don't need to KYC, you don't need to give any information. Like you can just have crypto in one wallet and then send it to someone in like China or India instantly, right? In like sub-second with Aptos, right? So when you give that functionality to like a large language model, that no longer needs to be like, hey, I want to sign up for like a credit card. Instead, it just has like an Aptos private key or an Aptos wallet, and it can send essentially US dollars to anyone else. Like that unlock there, I don't think is possible in Web 2, right? Like if you built a Web 2 AI agent, it'd be like, oh, I need access to, the Visa network or Stripe, right? But instead in the Web 3 world, it's like here you can give this AI agent like 10,000 and it's up to that agent where it wants to allocate this money and it can do it autonomously and permissionlessly, right? In the Web 2 world, I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of weird rules that come up in Web 2, I think, out of agents. Whereas I saw some posts recently where if you build a website right now, you add what's called a sitemap and a robots.txt file, and this allows the crawlers on Google and DuckDuckGo search engine and all these other places. It gives them like a whole framework to be able to search through your website more efficiently, and it helps with SEO and everything. And so now there's a discussion of, should we build an agents.txt style standard for websites? So I know YouTube and others have already started to block some of these agents from having access, because right now Anthropic, OpenAI, and others are all launching these agentic flows of different names, and some of it's open source out there too, like Use Computer, I think it's called. Because Anthropic's is called Computer Use, or maybe OpenAI's is called Deep something. I don't know. The naming conventions are changing, but overall, there's just going to be a language for these agents to understand on websites to be able to do this crawling. But crypto allows you to do it permissionlessly on the back end. Maybe on the front end, it might always have a permissioned layer for regulatory reasons, but on the back end, when these markets are created, they're ideally meant to exist autonomously on their own. Like the validators are, in a sense, like intended to be not agents, but like autonomously working together to secure the blockchain in the background. So I think there's a lot of change we're going to see, and there's going to be a blend of Web 2, Web 3. Like, can a Web 3 agent be a hybrid and crawl like YouTube and then bring that data into on-chain usage? Probably, but there's going to be like layers of centralization behind parts of its functionality if it's like scraping centralized platforms. But all these blockchains are decentralized too, so like the agents can just go and scrape that and then find all sorts of patterns that might not have been evident in another database. But
So I think we have a good background around how it was born and the functionalities that we can see it take. I guess my biggest question, and Haley, if you have another one, please feel free to chime in, but would be, what does the use of AI look like on Aptos today versus what we are expecting to happen later this year?
I think we're going to see a lot more, where right now Aptos is compatible with the ELIZA framework to a simple extent at its current state, where you can use transfers and more, but eventually the plugin will, or the Aptos plugin will have all the functionality that you have in other frameworks. Like I don't know exactly where ELIZA is the most effective, like which chain, but you can just imagine feature parity with what can be done on Aptos as existing within the ELIZA framework. So ELIZA bots can go and do anything that they want. And actually, now that we're on the topic, we should bring up MetaMove, which is built by the Joule team. And so MetaMove is probably the most advanced framework for Aptos at the moment, where it's all open source and it's connected to all the top DeFi and NFT protocols. So if you want an agent to go and do an NFT trade or lend and borrow somewhere on Aptos, it could do that. And that's all made possible with MetaMove. And they have a lot coming up. I don't want to spoil anything.
There's two that I like to mention. There's obviously MetaMove. They've done a great job at connecting a lot of the DeFi apps within Aptos. So you can, they're ultimately going after something like ELIZA from AI16Z, where I don't know if anyone has been tracking the token on that project, but that's a whole nother story in itself, where it kind of went from 0 to like 2.2 billion in less than a quarter, right? And so they ultimately created a ELIZA framework that allowed people to really easily spin up AI agents. And so we have the equivalent on Aptos, which is built by the MetaMove team, called the Move Agent Kit. And then the second project that I want to call out is Merkle Trade, where they're primarily like a perp dex, but they have realized that this new AI agent narrative is really taking storm, and these are what customers want, right? And so they've working on a Merkle SDK that I think also plugs into ELIZA and will allow an AI agent to place orders on their DEX. So that could be possibly interesting. I know they're kind of co-sponsoring the upcoming hackathon we have at Consensus Hong Kong. Aptos is a main sponsor. I believe we are sponsoring the AI track here. We're giving away, I think in total, the hackathon's giving away like 200,000. And Aptos specifically is giving away 30,000 in prizes for teams who build along the AI track. So very, very excited for what people create.
That's coming up very soon.
Yep.
And you're gonna be there, right?
Yes, I will be there with Alix.
I think the YAPT team is also using AI right now.
Yes, they actually have a platform that right now it's whitelisted by the Looney holders. So if you're a Looney, you can go try it out. And that is an AI agent launchpad, as far as I understand, where you'll be able to easily launch an agent that has an affiliated token and has its own, um, function and backstory.
Well, switching gears a little bit, I think the last two questions that I have for you all were around what dev resources or tutorials are available for builders who are looking to dabble in AI agents today. Brian, maybe I'll kick that to you, and then I want to talk a little bit about use cases.
Yeah, for dev resources, we actually have an Aptos agent that's on Replit. So Replit really nice because it's just a web UI where you don't need to download any dependencies. You can just essentially just click a button and run your own AI agent. And then we have a more detailed tutorial on Aptos Learn called creating your first AI agent. And I think we also will be leading a workshop at Consensus HK. And I mean, also, if you just follow my Twitter account, I think I have like a link to several ways to build an AI agent. Yeah,
You do videos too and tutorials
right.
on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
It's my name, Brian Wong, with 2 N's and 2 G's.
Not your name. Just kidding. I think you didn't mention, but I think you built your own no-code agent SDK, right? Or you at least have a tutorial that you posted on your Twitter. Is that correct?
Right, right. It's just a way to get people started, right? Like you don't have to you don't really even need to know how to write Python. And I think, especially with the AI tools that we have today, like Cursor, where you can ask like you can ask the IDE to write code for you. I think it's like a very simple way for people to just get started. And then it also allows for room for people to add more functionality to the agent.
So in terms of the AI products that I think we need, one thing that I've started working on, a request for proposal, which is going to be going out soon, is I don't know the name yet, so we're got to figure out the name and we might change it. But it's going to be fulfilling the need that an Aptos Assistant V2 would fill. So something trained on all of Aptos Move, all of Aptos Framework to start with as a primary source. Secondary sources, it could be all of the amazing documentation in the community, where the first one that comes to mind is Econia's documentation. If you go through their website, you can imagine how much work that was put into the Econia protocol even. And then I mean, Liquid Swap SDK, all Panora SDK, Panora token lists, and then, for example, all the main liquidity pools, those can be listed as constants within like the training set. So then, when you want to actually have a response, you could like ask, what are all the pools with this asset, for example. I'm just thinking off the top of my head for that example, but with the assistant, it would be meant for developers primarily, but also for users. And there's actually another shout out I'll do to Antiki Thera. That was one of the Code Collision winners, and he built a version of this, which it wasn't so fine-tuned as to how I'm imagining it, but it was very much like a general search tool for all of Aptos, and you could find all the different protocols that might have liquidity pools with X asset or Y asset in it. And I think that's gonna, as Aptos DeFi scales, as the opportunity scale, it'll be helpful for search to be guided by AI, where that leads me to my next point of a type to trade or type to search integrations. So that could be a dev tool plugin of some sort that any protocol could use, or it could be built into, like, if you're building a wallet, you could build in your own type to trade interface. And that those trades can vary as well in complexity, where the first, like, think about that agentic framework I mentioned at the beginning by Hugging Face, like the very first level could just.
I want to expand on what Zach's saying, especially the type to trade use case. I think right now we have about 50 million users on chain, right? And I think we have about 5 billion users who use the internet. So I think especially what's very interesting about AI is like what is going to be that next big thing that brings more users on chain. And I think simplifying the user experience to do like certain actions. Like I don't think the wallet experience where, you have a wallet for Aptos, you have a wallet for Solana, you have a wallet for Ethereum. Each time you want to do something on chain, you have to like approve a transaction. I think there is a future where AI and crypto kind of abstract this idea of like, hey, you don't need to be siloed in a separate chain. And instead, you can trade across all these different venues and make the user interface really easy to use, almost like a ChatGPT-like experience. I think that will bring more users on chain and ultimately be like net good for everyone. And so my hope is that someone along the space, really, really talented, good founder can see how big of an opportunity this is and come and build it.
Definitely. I think when I think of AI, the first thing I think of is making things easier and more accessible. So definitely echoing this.
Thing that doesn't make sense to me, and I think it just seems like such an obvious problem to fix, is like right now when you say USDC, you're actually saying like, oh, this USDC can only work on this chain, right? Or like something that's even more ridiculous in my opinion is like, oh, we don't have USD supported quite yet, but we have a wrapped version of USDC. Like, how would we explain that to someone who's not on chain? That's like ultimately extremely confusing, right? Like, why? I think in the future we could get to a point where it says, hey, we have US dollar, like this US dollar can work across everything on chain, right? So it's not it's not like, oh, my USD sits on Aptos and I can only interact with Aptos DeFi. Like I would love to get to a world where, it's anything on chain.
Yeah. Ideally, I think in the meantime, rejects could help fix that. Like regular expressions could help with the intake of USDC. It could be corrected to LZUSDC or USDT or USDC or DAI or something that isn't like maybe a whitelisted version of that. But I always, whenever this topic gets brought up, I think about FTX because for some reason, I don't know if they were commingling accounts or whatever. I mean, we do know that they were doing that, but in the sense of this example, I'd be able to deposit USDC from Ethereum and withdraw it to Solana or withdraw USD to my bank, all without having to swap. Meanwhile, today I have to pay a 1% fee to swap, any USDC or any stable. So it's kind of like those are the glory days, I think, is when they were doing that commingling. But it'd be great for the user experience to work like that on chain or even off chain if you're having a multi-chain world.
Right.
I think there's a topic that could go on and on forever, and there's a lot to talk about. But I think it's time for us to wrap up. So thank you guys for joining us. Let us know in the comments if you want to see more of this. If AI is something that you want us to dive even deeper in. Yeah, Haley, any last word?
No, I feel like I learned a lot from this conversation. Oddly, I feel like there's a lot that I still need to decipher and study up on, but I feel like we definitely could have a separate conversation around like the different use cases for AI agents. So if you guys want to hear more or hear from Brian and Zach more, let us know. But thank you, Zach and Brian, for joining us seriously.
And look up the upcoming different hackathons on Aptos that are related to AI. I think Chingari just wrapped up one. MetaMove's doing one. We're doing one in Consensus. If you have ideas and want to participate, please look it up, reach out to us.
Yeah, maybe 4 shout outs. Maybe Alora, which is Wopal's platform, and then MetaMove, which is by Jewel, the framework we talked about, the Eliza plugin, and the Crossmint SDK. So they also enable Aptos to work within their agent framework. So those are all ways you could try Aptos AI today.
There you have it, folks.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you all.
Bye.